Welcome to the Millennial Lawyer Podcast.
Welcome back to the Millennial Lawyer Podcast with Mark Shirian. Mark is a New York litigation attorney and founder of Mark David Shirian PC, known for securing seven-figure results in personal injury, employment, and complex civil cases. My name is Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're talking about a really interesting and timely topic, video game addiction litigation. Mark, welcome back. It's good to see you.
Great seeing you too, Kevin.
So what exactly is video game addiction litigation, and why are companies like Epic Games, Activision Blizzard, and Roblox Corporation, huge companies, being sued for their role in teen addiction?
So video game litigation is an emerging legal field where plaintiffs, often parents, sue gaming companies for designing games that allegedly foster addiction. So leading to psychological, social, and financial harm. Companies like Epic Games, Activision Blizzard, and Roblox are targeted because their games use mechanics like loot boxes, time-limited rewards, and social features that exploit teens' developing brains, encouraging compulsive play. So a lot of these lawsuits claim that these companies prioritize profits over player well-being, with cases like those in California alleging negligence and deceptive practices.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a 4-year-old. He's already into games and stuff, and it's fun to reward stuff. And I mean, he's 4, and they keep popping up with things like, "Hey, buy this, do this, extend this." So is there an aspect of it where parental oversight or personal choice might negate liability, or how are courts evaluating the causation in the addiction cases?
Well, courts assess causation by requiring plaintiffs to show a direct link between the design and the addiction, often through evidence like excessive playtime logs, so like 10 plus hours daily, medical diagnoses of gaming disorder, or expert testimony on how mechanics exploit dopamine systems. So the defendants like Microsoft, if we're talking about Minecraft, or Electronic Arts, EA, they counter that addiction stems from personal choices or inadequate parental supervision, not game design necessarily. So courts often scrutinize whether plaintiffs can prove that games are uniquely addictive beyond general entertainment, making causation a difficult high hurdle.
Yeah, I mean, I've played my fair share of video games in my life, and let's be honest, I've definitely I wouldn't call it an addiction, but I definitely had moments where I was like, "Oh my God, it's 5:00!" Like I thought it was like noon, where you just completely lose track of time. And I can definitely see the addictive qualities about it. You mentioned before loot boxes and daily rewards. What are some of the specific game mechanics like those that are cited in lawsuits against some of these companies like Epic Games and Tencent, and how do they contribute to teen addiction, or how do the plaintiffs say that they contribute?
So lawsuits against Epic Games, so Fortnite or Tencent, highlight mechanics like loot boxes, which mimic gambling with random rewards and daily rewards that incentivize frequent logins. So these features exploit teens' psychological vulnerabilities by triggering dopamine-driven feedback loops, encouraging compulsive play to unlock rewards. So for example, with Fortnite's Battle Pass and limited time cosmetics create urgency, while other games randomized crates keep teens engaged, alleging to addiction symptoms like neglecting responsibilities.
Piggybacking off of that, what are the key signs of video game addiction in teens, and how are these symptoms used to strengthen legal claims?
So key signs of teen video game addiction include social withdrawal, so avoiding friends or family, academic decline, obviously dropping grades due to gaming, irritability when not playing is a big one, so that we call that gamer rage, and obsession with in-game achievements. So in litigation, these symptoms are documented through school records, parental testimony, or psychological evaluations to demonstrate harm. So for instance, a teen's Failing grades or social isolation linked to excessive Fortnite playtime strengthens claims that companies like Epic Games designed addictive products without adequate warnings. And that's what these cases are really about.
Okay. How has the World Health Organization's classification of gaming disorder as an actual mental health condition influenced lawsuits targeting teen addiction against companies, even companies like Sony and Nintendo?
That's a good question. So, the WHO's 2018 recognition of gaming disorder as a mental health condition has significantly bolstered lawsuits by providing a medical framework to legitimize these sort of claims. So, against companies like Sony, when you're talking about like PlayStation titles like God of War and Nintendo with Animal Crossing, plaintiffs use this classification to argue that addiction is a diagnosable condition caused by game design, not just poor self-control. So courts are more likely to consider expert testimony citing WHO criteria, which ultimately enhances the credibility of these claims against these developers.
Why was the attempt to consolidate video game addiction lawsuits into a multi-district litigation denied? And how does California's coordinated proceeding impact cases against multiple developers?
So the MDL was denied because the Judicial Panel on Multi-District Litigation found insufficient commonality among the claims against different developers like Epic Games and Activision Blizzard due to varied game design and state laws. So California's coordinated proceeding, however, allows related claims to be managed together in state court, streamlining discovery and pretrial motions. And this benefits plaintiffs by reducing costs and ensuring consistent rulings across targeting multiple developers.
What about First Amendment defenses? Do those get raised by some of these companies? And if so, do they affect the litigation over teen addiction, particularly when games are being compared to protected speech?
Absolutely. So companies like Roblox Corporation and Microsoft have argued that video games are an expressive content, like books or films, protected by the First Amendment as upheld in Brown versus Entertainment Merchants Association. So in a Illinois case against Roblox, the court partially dismissed claims citing this protection, but allowed reframed defective design arguments to proceed. So these defenses force plaintiffs to focus on specific mechanics causing harm, not necessarily game content, which complicates litigation but doesn't fully shield these developers, if that makes sense.
What type of damages are they seeking in lawsuits against these companies? And how do factors like in-game spending, mental health treatment costs, how do these sort of things influence these claims?
So plaintiffs seek economic damages like microtransaction costs. So money that's spent within the game, like with Fortnite, there are skins in Fortnite. So those are damages that are recoverable, therapy expenses, and non-economic damages like emotional distress from addiction-related issues. So severe cases involving hospitalization or significant life disruption, you could claim $100,000 to $300,000. In-game spending records and mental health treatment costs are critical evidence as they quantify financial harm and demonstrate the extent of the addiction, strengthening the claims against Epic Games and others.
We touched on some of the signs of video game addiction earlier. How do lawyers use these to build the cases against some of these developers?
Okay, so physical signs include sleep deprivation from late night gaming, eye strain or poor hygiene, while psychological signs include anxiety, depression, or compulsive gaming, despite negative consequences. Lawyers use these through medical records, parental affidavits, or expert testimony to show addiction's impact. So, for example, a teen's chronic fatigue from playing a game can be linked to game mechanics like time-sensitive challenges, arguing that the developers are negligent in their design.
So it really does come down to the design, because I'm curious, if it wasn't really an issue, at least that I knew of, back in the day. I knew people who you could argue were addicted to video games, but there weren't time sensitive challenges. You just had to do stuff. They just couldn't stop playing it. So really what a lot of this stems from is the way the design, the UX and the UI are, in order to keep people playing and spending money.
Right. And I think the key thing is, back when video games were first introduced, whether I think it was late 70s, early 80s with Nintendo, and then you had Sega, and then you had Xbox. But for a long time, these consoles were not connected to the internet, right?
Very true.
You buy the game, you play the game, you may even finish up the game, but you couldn't really make in-game purchases, and it wasn't connected to the internet. Now that these games, you could purchase them on the internet, and they are accessible through the internet, obviously, and you could play other people on the internet. All of these lead to a more addictive product, which is dangerous, especially for teens.
I mean, some of the games are free. They don't even have to pay for them. It's just they get your money when you go in and you get those rewards and those in-app purchases.
Right.
So what industry changes do you think might result from successful lawsuits against some of these major gaming companies like Sony, Nintendo, Epic, particularly as it relates to protecting teens from addictive game design?
So successful lawsuits could force companies like Sony, Nintendo, and Epic Games to add addiction warnings and limit addictive mechanics. So removing the loot boxes or implementing playtime restrictions for minors. So they might also spur regulations like mandatory disclosures about psychological risks, similar to gambling warnings. The industry could shift toward less exploitive designs, as seen in some European regulations, in order to protect teens and avoid future liability.
Wow. Interesting stuff. It'll be really fascinating to see where this goes from here. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. If you'd like to connect with Mark, visit ShirianPC.com, and also be sure to leave us a review, subscribe to our channel. We really appreciate having you here. Mark, that was a great topic. Really interesting stuff. Thanks so much for your time.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.